Hey guys, Jonathan Feist here for DroneRush.com. I've been flying for over a month now the new DJI Mavic Air. I'm finally ready to give you my full review. Let's start with the basics. This is a compact folding drone. Collapses in. This time, unlike previous DJI drones, the propellers are not foldable. They are a solid piece. That's fine, it gives this drone a very sports car feel. I'm going to say that a lot throughout this review because this is a sports car. As is normal for DJI, it has a removable battery. The propellers as well are quick release. The way I keep describing this drone, and I believe it, is DJI has taken almost all of the best features from the DJI Spark and the DJI Mavic Pro, mashed them together, improved on them, and added some more. In terms of flight capabilities, very more capable but similar to those previous two drones. But what we really want to focus on is the camera. This is a 3-axis gimbal that's smaller than the DJI Mavic Pro, but far more capable than the Spark. We've already done our full camera review. I urge you to check that out if you want all of the specs. But in short, you've got a 4K camera that shoots at 30 frames per second. Now, you've seen 4K 30 before. What really matters here, the big difference, is, for example, the DJI Mavic Pro. The data rate is 60 megabits per second. And this guy is up to 100. That's on par with the Phantom 4 Pro and other high-end drones. Controlling this drone is done similarly to other compact DJI drones. You can fly it with a remote control, you can fly it with your mobile device, or of course you can combine the two so that the controller operates the drone and the phone operates as your FPV screen with extra access to flight modes such as the quick shot and the new, of course, asteroid. In addition, just like the Spark, but even better than the Spark, you can control this guy with hand gestures. This goes beyond just tossing the drone in the air by hand and making follow your hand with Jedi mind tricks. This goes right from launching it from the ground up to landing it when you're done. Connectivity to the remote is not through OcuSync like you'd find with the Mavic Pro. This guy is Wi-Fi technology, so you're operating several channels on the 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz bands. The lack of OcuSync means that if you want to connect your Mavic Pro to your DJI goggles, you're going to need to use a cable. The flip side, once you get this drone in the air, all of these troubles melt away. Flying this drone is an absolute pleasure. Going back to that sports car theme, this little guy is capable of getting up to 42.5 miles per hour. Combine that with some wind, we've seen it 44, almost 45 miles per hour. It doesn't seem like much if you're thinking about driving your car, but I promise you, if you're weaving in and out of trees, that's scary fast. Of course, if you want full stabilized flight utilizing the front, bottom, and rear obstacle avoidance sensors, you're going to be topping out about 17-18 miles per hour. Your maximum ascent speed in sport mode is about 4 meters per second. That's a little over 13 feet per second going up. But please be aware for your battery consumption that coming down is almost half of that speed. For the photographers out there, I found that while ascending, the camera stays completely stable. However, on a perfectly straight descent, this guy jostles a little bit, and I'm actually finding that wobble visible in the camera, in the video capture. Of course, that's fairly common for most drones, but please be aware of it. As you skyrocket upwards, remember that this thing is capable of getting to 16,404 feet. Now, I don't know what country you live in, but here in the United States, you're only allowed to fly your drone up to 400 feet above the ground. That means you've got a real long drive and hike to get up if you want to max this thing out at 16,000 feet. Despite the size of this removable battery, you'll find that this big brick is 2,375 milliamps. That's smaller than your cell phone. And this is going to give you, DJI says, up to 21 minutes of stable flight with no wind. We're finding it 16 to 17 minutes of booting around the neighborhood. Range from the controller is slated at 4,000 meters, that's about 2.5 miles. Now, of course, keep in mind, line of sight rules means you're never going to get out that far with this drone, at least not in the United States. We've seen some long-range testing in legal countries, and we've done what we can within line of sight as well. But we're finding that connectivity is strong and stable. We maintain our video feed as long as our eyes can keep focused on the drone. However, one thing we found is how you handle the controller is very important. You've seen this before, the antenna flip up. What we found with the DJI Mavic Pro is it really kinda didn't matter how we had these antenna positioned. With the Mavic Air, that is not the case. For example, when I fly straight above my head to that 400-foot legal ceiling, I find that the drone loses connectivity. I have to make sure I transition my antenna from a vertical position to a horizontal plane so that it can connect straight up to the drone. And then when I bring the drone back down or fly it out, I find myself tilting the remote and constantly adjusting the antenna so that we're facing towards the drone. It's not a huge thing to worry about, of course, because DJI has built in the automatic return to home feature. If you lose connectivity from the remote, the drone will come and land right where you took it off. Another word of warning on that, I have to say, despite DJI's great track record with the Mavic Pro landing within like half a meter of its takeoff point, my last time using RTH on the Mavic Air, it landed about 6.5 feet away. Not a problem, but not quite the precision every time. Keeping our attention on the remote, you'll notice one other thing. Look at that slim form factor, able to slip into a pocket. That is because tucked under these arms are the joysticks for the remote. Quickly screw them on and you're off ready to go. I mentioned in our unboxing and setup that the tactile feedback of the base of the joystick without the joystick itself gives a decent feel, but it is slippery. There's nothing to really connect onto. I wouldn't risk it. It's a good thing that in the box, you get an extra pair of joysticks. Flipping out the mobile device arms, you can fit in here a tablet up to about 7 inches. Of course, you're probably going to connect your smartphone. Connection to your mobile device is done through a cable built into the side. This guy just connects up at the top and then into the mount on the bottom. 3 cables are provided. The older micro USB, there's a lightning cable for your iOS device, and for the new Android phone users, you get the USB Type-C connector. As always with this style of remote, we're finding the clamp very strong. We haven't had any issues with mobile devices slipping or falling out. The remote is much simpler than the Mavic Pro, but a little bit more advanced than the Spark. Of course, it does not have the display like you'd find with the Mavic Pro. But don't worry about that reduced telemetry on the remote itself. The DJI Go 4 app on your mobile device is more than capable. And best of all, we're finding it, specifically on Android, more stable than ever as well. And of course you need that phone to access all of the great flight features, such as tap fly, cinematic mode, tripod mode for the beginners, or smooth videographers, or of course quick shot with the new boomerang and asteroid flight modes. All in all, you're going to find you're spending a lot of time with this drone flying, and you're not actually touching the buttons. We're not going to call it autonomous, but it certainly has self-flying modes dialed in. And for you enthusiasts out there, front and center, sport mode. Remember, that jumps you from about 17-18 miles per hour up to close to 42 miles per hour. Be aware of that, especially since that once it's in sport mode, the obstacle avoidance sensors are no longer active. Speaking of those obstacle avoidance sensors, 2 on the front, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the rear. These sensors go beyond simply avoiding an obstacle and coming to a halt before hitting it. DJI has introduced a new flight mode, APAS. This advanced pilot assistance system takes the drone, intelligently identifies objects in front of it, and will navigate autonomously around obstacles. Please be aware, this guy does not have side obstacle avoidance sensors. It's unlikely the drone is just going to fly sideways into an obstacle however it could. Coming back to that camera, the Mavic Air is shooting some of the best aerial footage we've seen in a drone smaller than the Phantom 4 Pro. This is a 1/2.3 inch CMOS sensor. That's the same sensor you'll find in the Spark and the Mavic Pro, except with that advanced data rate at 100 megabits per second, we're finding the video quality almost as good as that 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor in the Phantom 4 Pro. That video data rate brings up an important topic: micro SD cards. Of course, the Mavic Air supports micro SD card, which is hidden in this back little panel, which also has a USB Type-C port for data transfers to your computer. Whilst flying, we've been seeing warnings in the app about the data recording speeds of our micro SD card. This one is capable of 96 megabits per second write speeds. Of course, with the camera shooting 100 megabits per second, the app is warning us that it's not keeping up. This has not been a problem. All of our footage is eventually stored. It's just buffered and the software has to handle it before it can write it all through. You'll kind of see an example of this if you shoot an HDR photo or take one of the panoramic photos, where the drone will maneuver itself, capture the images, and then of course while it's stitching it all together, it's buffered that image and putting it through onto the card. It takes a few seconds after the drone photos are actually captured to save in. Now DJI has thought of one other thing. What if you forget your micro SD card at home? No problem, they've built in 8 gigabytes of internal storage on this drone. I don't know about you, but 8 gigabytes of 4K video at 30 frames per second, that's not enough for my airtime. When I'm punching through my Fly More combo, draining all 3 batteries in a session, I need a fairly big micro SD card. However, 8 gigabytes is a great amount of space if you want to capture some photos or you're just in a pinch. Powering on the Mavic Air is the same as always, a push and hold to press on the button, on the power button. Once the drone goes through the self-check procedures, you'll see there's LED lights on it to indicate your front and rear. As always, different colors of lights and different flashing patterns indicate different things for the drone. However, this has been a nuisance for myself at least. I was out flying once and I talked about this in our camera review, and the app crashed on me. I was using my Android device. Luckily, I had a second Android phone with me, so I was eventually able to land the drone, swap phones, and get back up at the air. But while that app was down, all I had was the basics on that remote control. And what I wanted to do, what I was there to fly for, was to capture some footage. It was a nice sunny day, which was nice in the wintertime. However, I could not tell whether or not the Mavic Air was recording video or not. So I ended up randomly tapping on that video capture button, that's the top left trigger on the remote, and just hoping for the best. Luckily I did get some of that footage, but not all of it, not what I wanted. So these flashing indicator lights, functional, great, serve their purpose, but if you don't know what the flashes indicate, you may be out of luck for flying without the mobile app. I talked about how the drone can fly up to 42.5 miles per hour, but what I didn't tell you is it's able to handle winds. It can handle about 21-22 mile per hour winds, maintaining stable image. Of course, you can jack that up to 28 mile per hour winds or so without losing control of the drone. I dare say, if it's anywhere near that windy, just, unfortunately, call it quits and come back another day. When flying the drone, it maintains a hover. Now it's rated for the same hover ability as all the other DJI drones, using the visioning systems and GPS and GLONASS to keep its position. As I've had the pleasure of saying before with DJI drones, it does so very well. That said, one thing you're going to find with this drone, and I'm sure you're going to find it with much of the footage shot by this drone, is the drone is, I don't want to say jerky, it's sporty. Remember that sports car reference? Let's go back to that. This, I think, comes from a number of things. First of all, these are big, powerful motors, especially for the size of this drone. The Mavic Air weighs approximately half of the weight of the Mavic Pro. Certainly not half the size. The other factor, of course, is the fixed propellers. On the Mavic Pro and on the Spark, the propellers fold. What this does is when you stomp on the throttle, the propeller has a little bit of a give where it can bend in, which kind of smooths your acceleration. That is not the case with this drone, as you'll find with lots of racing drones as well. When you stomp on that throttle, this guy just goes. That goes for maneuvering, if you're twisting, turning, tilting, whatever you're up to. This guy is very responsive. Again, makes it tons of fun. And the gimbal is able to compensate for a lot of that. But you're going to see some jerky, twisty turniness in some of your capture. That is why there's cinematic mode, which slows that acceleration and deceleration, and of course the tripod mode, which reduces the top speed of the drone. All in all, I have many great things to say about the Mavic Air. As you'll see in our upcoming Mavic Air versus Mavic Pro comparison, it is not as capable in many ways as the Mavic Pro, but it is twice as capable in other ways. And those ways add up to a more immersive experience, a much faster and agile flight, and a whole lot of fun. More importantly, at least for myself, the video capture is superior to the Mavic Pro, despite having fewer camera modes to work with. As is always the case, there's a proper tool for the proper job, but if your job is to have some fun, get some great aerial images without being professional, and just to be able to scoot around with an extremely portable drone, the DJI Mavic Air is easily one of the best on the market today. For all of these capabilities in this great drone package, you can get your hands on it for $799. That gets you the drone, a battery, a remote, and a basic accessory package. Everything you need to fly. As we usually do, we recommend the Fly More combo. It's $999, gets you 3 batteries in total, nice carrying bag, and a few other tidbits. With those obstacle avoidance sensors and the supplied propeller guards, this drone is safe to fly indoors. It still creates a lot of wind and it's fairly noisy, so you're still going to have kicked out papers all over the place. However, you should have no issues with contacting anything or causing anybody any harm. I'm not going to recommend you fly this drone in the house, however, it is far more suited to outdoor flight where it can connect safely to GPS and get up to that 40 miles per hour. It is so much fun. If you ignore that we've intentionally flown the Mavic Air over the Mavic Pro just so we can get this experience, so we can get this review out for you, we haven't really flown the Mavic Pro since getting our hands on the Mavic Air. And that should do it for our full review of the DJI Mavic Air. Great little drone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. We've been having a ton of fun flying this machine. We think you will too. It's affordable, it's compact, it's easy to fold up and transport. Please stay tuned for plenty more coverage of this guy and plenty other drones coming soon. If you like what you've seen here, we always appreciate that thumbs up. And then consider subscribing, hit that bell icon if you want to see what we have coming next. Thanks again all. Fly safe.